Ever since beginning this month of Equestria Girls, you will probably been looking forward to this video since I've uploaded my August schedule. And as far as I'm concerned, I honestly think that me not talking about Equestria Girls other than fanfic readings in such a long time, I honestly think that this video is something that people should actually understand on what's going on at the moment. Even by the time of this recording, I still don't know if Equestria Girls will continue, even if I upload this at the end of this month. So anyway, this is my analysis video on Equestria Girls' only breakthrough. I'm just gonna get this out of the way, and it's probably something that people will probably notice when it comes to the My Little Pony YouTube channel. So one of the people that I've seen completely commented that those Equestria Girls videos on YouTube. However, it isn't Season 2 videos. Well, it is, but not 100%. It's a compilation of Equestria Girls together, and I would usually go against this idea considering on how Equestria Girls just doesn't have anything to do with anything going on at the moment, but at the same time, unlike the video that they've uploaded at the end of October, which was one short along with multiple parts of Spring Breakdown, these really don't bother me. I mean, I think they're only made for the excuse of if kids want to download so many Equestria Girls material, and then when they watch this 32-minute video, I think that that's probably a way to have the parents download these videos so they can have multiple shorts instead of just one most of the time. I know people would consider this lazy, but I honestly think that it's not really a bad thing, to be quite honest. I understand that this is literally the only way for Hasbro to actually have Equestria Girls split, but the thing is, they did the same thing with their own show, which is My Little Pony, where I see most of the videos being cranked up. And the same goes to compilations of songs that they add in. I know people don't usually see this as an issue, but considering that this year, while we only have Pony Life and the fact that Friendship is Magic is officially over, well, in animation at least, I honestly think that this is basically what Hasbro is obviously going to do when it comes to new subscribers, while uploading compilations of songs of materials from Equestria Girls and Friendship is Magic. Now, usually, I honestly think that these ideas don't usually work because we've already seen these videos before, but for me personally, they're not easily the worst thing I've seen. For one thing, it's not going to fix the situation that Equestria Girls is possibly on hiatus, depending on what happens after the time of this recording. But at the same time, I honestly think that they probably want to actually have people see something from Equestria Girls before something happens. That's pretty much the good thing I can actually see when it comes to these compilations from Equestria Girls. They're probably just trying to actually they just probably want new subscribers to actually see something before they probably see something unexpected for the next information of Equestria Girls content. But considering of what I've seen from other people so far, I honestly don't think that's probably going to be a way if Equestria Girls will continue. For me personally, I honestly think that the ideal might work, but at the same time, it's going to be difficult to actually continue where Season 2 left off. And you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Holidays Unwrapped, that premiered on Discovery Family, and it was mentioned as the final sets of Equestria Girls Adventures by the time this was premiered in November. Now, I don't usually agree on the fact that these are the final sets of adventures. Even if it's been almost a year, I honestly think this isn't really the case. Because as far as I'm concerned, Discovery Family isn't really the best when it comes to making promos. Not to say that they're terrible, but considering they're just making promos, just plain ordinary promos like other channels do, like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. I honestly think that they probably were curious if these were the final sets of adventures, since they know that the contract of DHX is completely expired. Or DL. I don't know I keep forgetting the company's name who did the animation in Equestria Girls and Friendship is Magic. But by the time that they premiered this, they probably were confused if Equestria Girls was going to end or not. I know some people will obviously agree with me on that, but the thing is, for what we've been through of this year with the coronavirus and the fact that this year we're nearly at the final quarter, it's not really something that I can actually see when it comes to the events of what we've seen from cartoons like Equestria Girls. Because with shows like Adventure Time, well, it had specials that premiered this year, which is mostly a continuation of the show, but it's mostly a miniseries. People will probably expect something that could happen in Equestria Girls. And same thing with Friendship is Magic. I know for Friendship Forever as well, all of the actresses came back to say their lines in the bits of screen time that they have, since that those episodes were mostly a clip show. I can really think that could be another step of what Equestria Girls can do when it comes to its future and the fact that it does have a proper ending. I'm not saying it could go on forever. I'm just saying that it should at least deserve maybe a third season. I don't know about that, but maybe a third season with hopefully 3 specials and a movie just like the good old times to wrap up everything. Yes, that's a bit too much, but when you look at the cliffhanger of Equestria Girls, Legend of Everfree, people may say that it's mostly a plot device, but it's been a plot device that's been going on for almost 4 years. Legend of Everfree is gonna be 4 years old by the time we reach to the 1st of October, and it's honestly becoming really repetitive that they don't even see that the statue is leaking anything when it comes to magic. Anyway, I've always expressed about the leaking magic so many times, so here's something that people should actually take some inspirations when it comes to other cartoons that have ended but actually had a conclusion. People completely said on the My Little Pony websites that the shows of Hey Arnold, Rocko's Modern Life, Invader Zim, and Star Wars The Clone Wars, the final season, had a proper finale by fan support. This show can, which is Equestria Girls. If you're going to say that a movie is a way to end off everything and not so much, may I remind you that Star Wars completely had multiple episodes, which is 12. And the fact that it took nearly 6 years until we actually got a final season, we really got everything what we usually expect from Star Wars The Clone Wars. Granted, I don't watch The Clone Wars, but I can actually understand what people feel about it and how it made the prequel trilogy a lot more entertaining. My point is that the fact that people say that this show is canceled because it's either the fact that they hate Equestria Girls or the fact that the contract is completely expired with the animators, I honestly don't think that's really the case, because Taylor Strong did say that Twilight won't return in Generation 5, but when it comes to Generation 4, she will be part of those projects. And even though that she was probably probably talking about Forever Friendship is Forever, Forever Friendship, she could also refer to Equestria Girls, because as far as I'm concerned, if Hasbro can hire the old actresses to reprise their roles for the show Pony Life, they could do the same thing with Equestria Girls, even with a different animation studio. And besides, I honestly think that people who honestly think that this show doesn't deserve a conclusion or because that the ideas were scrapped, I honestly think that Hasbro really needs a break, even though that they'll focus on Pony Life and Generation 5. I'm not talking about taking a break as in recharging from all the hard work that they did in the past decade. I'm talking about taking a break from Generation 4. Because as far as I'm concerned, Generation 4 was the generation that made them popular to begin with. And as far as I'm concerned, everything that they did in the past decade, which is the 2010s, you can really tell that they could have done a lot more if they had the opportunity to make more Generation 4 content, even after Generation 9, after Season 9 was officially over. Granted, people won't usually agree with me on that, but after becoming a brony, after 4 years because Equestria Girls Friendship Games was the one that made me into a brony, everything I've seen when it comes to petitions and other people complaining that Equestria Girls won't continue is starting to become really, really old at this point. And for someone who's been watching this show for at least 4 years and made the first video of their channel involving two Twilights becoming friends in Legend of Everfree, which didn't end up happening, I can really tell you that this spin-off series still needs a conclusion, but at the same time, it probably needs more time than any other cartoon that happened in the past. I'm not talking about like 6 years when it comes to Star Wars or the amount of time it took between the other cartoons. Maybe like 1, 2, or 3 years. That's a bit too much, but from what's going on right now, I honestly have no issue on waiting anymore. I mean, it was when it comes to the specials, but during that time, I was just eager if Princess Twilight was returning. So, as far as I'm concerned, I honestly think that the ideal for Equestria Girls to actually have some kind of way to actually recharge itself is probably taking a break. Even if it's a once-in-a-while thing when it comes to releasing each special by time, it's probably a way to make things a lot more simpler for Hasbro so that they don't have to put so much pressure. And the fact that we probably need to respect the fact that they're trying to make to put all the focus on Generation 5. Anyway, I should probably get back to Princess Twilight. I know I keep talking about her a lot, and the fact with Human Twilight, but I just want to make one thing perfectly clear. When I completely mention on the fact that Friendship is Magic doesn't actually continue on actually making things important like Princess Twilight, I can really understand the situation by other people, but at the same time, they shouldn't just nix the whole thing. That's the thing I'm having with Equestria Girls. The fact that she doesn't usually return, and the fact that she did say it's goodbye until next time, what was the point of her saying that line in Rainbow Rocks? For one thing, the backlash wasn't even on Princess Twilight's appearance in Rainbow Rocks whatsoever. I never understand onto why they would easily add that line in if they're not going to use her ever again. And the fact that the polo that Twilight made was only used in Rainbow Rocks in some occasions that don't usually affect on Twilight's appearance in the Equestria Girls world. Now, there was one person that told me that I should blame the executives for that, since that they're the ones that nix any further return of Princess Twilight. And I would agree with him on that, but at the same time, it's probably something that the executives probably didn't know how to handle the situation of the leaking magic of the statue. Because remember, that's where the magic is coming from, and it's from Equestria. So if we don't actually have Princess Twilight notice the leaking magic, since that it was the same portal that she came out of, I honestly don't think that Sunset and the Yellows can handle it. Because for one, they've handled through the same situation for so many times, it's starting to become a tool. It's honestly becoming a really dead plot device. The only thing they did differently was maybe post-crush, because it didn't actually involve redemption or forgiveness and stuff, despite being perfection. Because whenever I look at these, other than the Dazzlings, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And it gets to the point that even though I can understand the hate, well, people just cannot stand the idea of using the same ideas over and over again. But at the same time, I think that it could have been much more better if the people actually listened to the fans of one of the criticisms that they keep doing over and over again, which is not the Flash hate. I'm talking about the villain and the others, which is Glossio Daisy, Twilight Sparkle, Jimbo Montage, Vigna Valencia, and Post Crush. The only thing that I know Waffle Blush did the same thing when it comes to forgiveness, but considering that she did the same thing just with a different Equestrian artifact, there's no big difference here. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that the reasons onto why Equestria Girls is being its own thing is the fact that they can't be able to actually create their own villains. The Dazzlings or the Sirens were part of the Equestria world, so I honestly think that doesn't really count whatsoever. And the characters that they do come up with aren't really the best when it comes to them being mostly friendly or mostly stylized. I do try to actually look into the bright side of things, but it's honestly difficult to actually look at the villains from the first two movies and what we end up in the latest projects. It just really doesn't usually work. And the sad thing is that if this is literally the only thing that the Rainbooms can handle without Twilight's help, then this is just further proof that having Twilight being away from Equestria just doesn't usually work. Look, if you're going to say that Princess Twilight was mostly pointless in Rainbow Rocks, you're mostly wrong. It's that she's just trying to help the other characters to do a counterspell. And if you're going to say that if there's a different villain happening in the Equestria Girls and she's not needed, let me remind you that the Rainbooms went through the same situation. If they went through another villain that could do different abilities, they will go through a serious situation that they can't be able to fight the villain on themselves. I just really think that the idea of just saying that Princess Twilight shouldn't return because of what we've seen her appearance in Rainbow Rocks doesn't usually work. It just makes everything really meaningless if you really think about it. I understand people really want to actually appreciate Equestria Girls for trying to do different ideals, but whenever it tries to take risks, they completely do the same cliches over and over again. This is why I don't usually go against the first movie, because for one, even though that it's mostly cliches and I can understand people having an issue with it, it's been 7 long years, and even though it hasn't been aged well, I don't consider this as the worst thing when it comes to Equestria Girls, since it's the movie that started off this spin-off series. If I was the one who made this movie, I would probably try to make it better, even with some of the people don't usually agree with it. And the other ideas that they did in that movie involving Flash Century and stuff, I would have executed them much more better if they didn't actually have to make him mostly a love interest. I'm not a shipper, I'm not, but at the same time, I honestly think that the Flash hate didn't need to be this high. And whenever I actually think of Equestria Girls as of right now, it's not because it's moved on, it doesn't feel the same like it was in the past. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's mostly an improvement thing. After Forgotten Friendship came out, the rest of the specials become Woompers, and they didn't take any chances on making something interesting. Even if this is catered to kids, they should at least know that this is really limited, and they really need to take this limitation and make it worth the wait. So I honestly think that the shippings between Rarity and Applejack, and the other things that we've seen from Spring Breakdown, and maybe Sunset's Backstage Pass, should have been executed much more better instead of just ending up with the same ideals over and over again. It just really annoys me that the creators just can't handle the backlash, even though that they just don't usually learn from their mistakes. Whether you agree with me on my opinion or not, I did try to actually respect the newer seasons and shorts of Equestria Girls, despite how forced it is. But after seeing everything from the past 4 years, other than the 2 seasons, I honestly think that this show should at least deserve a final season, while a final movie to wrap up everything. Because, in all honesty, the breakthrough that Equestria Girls has at the moment, there are so many of them that I don't know how they're going to get through them all. They didn't focus a lot on the Dazzlings in Black Sage Pass, which is something that they probably should have actually done much more better instead of having Post Crush as the main villains. They really don't know how to deal with the other characters or locations in this, and if they do come up with ideas, I honestly think that they should really execute them and make them a lot more different. And when it comes to returning characters or choose your own endings, they should probably actually put a lot more effort and actually make them more entertaining. Because I know Kappa is still affecting YouTube, but if there's one thing I can give when it comes to Hasbro doing choose your own endings again, is just make them exclusive to Discovery, to the Discovery Family app, or put the choose your own endings in the description box, something that they should have thought of when this year began. I know it's not really the best choice, but if people expected to have a 3rd season from this, they should at least expect some changes that what's been happening recently. If there's one thing I need to address, is probably the fact that people are usually talking about the disappointment of the end of Equestria Girls. I watched Tricky Fox's video about how he feels about the spin-off series, and he does make some good points, and I do agree with them. But at the same time, he didn't actually think that, but I'm not sure that what he says is mostly true, like if Equestria Girls is cancelled. Because for one thing, we didn't get any information out from Hasbro. So I don't understand why people can easily think that Equestria Girls has come to an end, despite the fact that Hasbro didn't confirm it yet. You may say that Discovery Family did back in November, but that doesn't count since that they didn't know what was going on. Especially since that Hasbro has tried to release the Choose Your Own Endings and the 2 music videos of this year from Season 2. So I honestly think that the fact that people are still exaggerating on the fact that Equestria Girls is canceled or not is starting to become really repetitive and getting done to death at this point. I can understand that people don't usually want to see returning cartoons, but considering that Hasbro is putting the focus on Generation 5 and people online are completely declining the ideal of having returning characters return for Generation 5, that's something that Generation 5 can do on its own. But when it comes to Generation 4, Equestria Girls is pretty much the only thing that it has going, since there's pretty much nothing that they can actually do when it comes to Friendship is Magic, since that's over. I mean, if you really think about it, there are so many opportunities that Equestria Girls didn't do, even if I'm not agree with it. Like having the counterparts of the Neon 6, even though Sunball or Sandball is pretty much the only character we're probably going to see in human form, since that he is a pony. But it will probably be a lot more interesting for other people to actually see that Hasbro can have so much inspiration when it comes to Equestria Girls. Even if it's been 7 years, it's been 7 years that they can actually make Equestria Girls mostly relevant in the most right places. Even though if it's going to be difficult to actually make them right, And if there's a chance that this show actually goes on for more seasons when it comes to its return, I can see that happening. But, for my opinion at least, I honestly think that it's either making a fifth and final movie, along with a third and final season with 4 specials, which I'm not going to name one of them because at this point I'm getting sick of saying them, and actually wrap up everything when it comes to the 5th movie's ending. As far as I'm concerned, I'm probably getting really tired of people constantly saying that Equestria Girls is over because Discovery Family said so in the promo of Holidays Unwrapped. It may be true, but I honestly think that the comments involving the sides of Equestria Girls show return or not is starting to become really old and getting done to death at this point. I may have issues with it, and I do understand that these issues can be a bit really distracting, but at the same time, I know full well that Equestria Girls shouldn't end because Season 9 is over, which wrapped up Friendship is Magic. The fact that other shows completely return and revived, I can really tell that Equestria Girls will have the same effect. Granted, not all cartoons revived like Jimmy Neutron, but that's because the company who made the animation went bankrupt. And it didn't happen with DHX. They say they are done with Equestria Girls, but I know full well that they might come back to do some more. I know that they're not really interested into actually doing Equestria Girls at the moment, but by the years go on, when we get older and have the weight be worth it when it comes to the middle of Generation 5's somewhat success, we might see some kind of information about an Equestria Girls. Now granted, we didn't get any information this year mainly from Comic-Con because, well, coronavirus and it's canceled and stuff like that. And the fact that they're just trying to actually move forward with Generation 5's development. But at the same time, I really think that Equestria Girls isn't over, at least at the moment. Granted, it's on a hiatus, but if it's going to take a very long hiatus, then people should really accept that and not to make multiple comments and completely discussing on what's going on at the moment, because I'm getting really sick and tired of people saying that this should end or cancel or something like that on hiatus and stuff like that, because it's starting to become really annoying to the point that Generation 4 is completely over despite Equestria Girls. And at this point, I think that it'll be better if we just wait and actually see a tweet from Hasbro so that they can actually give us some kind of inspiration on what's going on at the moment. And at this point, it would be better if we just actually accept what they're actually just trying to think when it comes to the fans' support, and then they can actually make more. Because as far as I'm concerned, fan support is what really helped cartoons revive from their hiatus. And the same thing could happen with Equestria Girls. I never actually noticed that there were so many other cartoons that were on hiatus and actually came back and actually have a proper conclusion. For me personally, I actually thought that Star Wars was completely done and over with since that the final season came out in 2014, but that wasn't really the final season. So when I actually see something like Equestria Girls taking that chance, it'll probably be a way that we'll might be able to see something interesting involving the name of Equestria Girls. Whether you like it or not, companies including Hasbro and people like all of us need to go on hiatus in order to take a break. Because after 6 years from 2013 to 2019, I honestly think that Equestria Girls does need a break, even after Friendship is Magic is officially over. And all I can say is that this is probably going to be the final video I'm going to be discussing on Equestria Girls as of now, well, despite me doing fanfic readings of them. Even though if you may agree with me on what I feel about this, it's not really a debate on opinions. It's mainly on what happens when it comes to Hasbro's choices. And there are so many topics I didn't talk about, like the 2 sunsets, and mostly on how they should have returning characters, which is Princess Twilight. And I will admit that those kind of ideas should happen, but for my predictions at least, I don't know what we're going to expect from this, and it still needs a long break. So if you're a father or mother who has children, I honestly think you should probably keep them occupied with these videos instead. It's not a lot, and it's not going to actually make people a lot better, but at the same time, it's literally the only thing that Equestria Girls has it going. And if you're probably going to get sick of the waiting and stuff like that, I understand. But for what I've actually seen from this, there's really nothing that we can do at the moment other than just wait and wait. We're getting close to the autumn season, and at this point, my review on Hiatus Unwrapped is going to be a year old, Friendship Games is going to be 5 years old, and the fact that it's also the time, well, Season 9, the finale of Season 9 is going to be a year old. So don't actually make so many comments. I mean, involving the ending or the something when it comes to Equestria Girls' future, if it does have one, because it's getting old, and at this point, I'm just getting sick of all the backlash and the stuff that we've seen, and the stuff I've seen involving people complaining on what's going on with the show, and the fact that they don't use it ever again. It just really gets old, and I'm really getting sick of it. Anyway, I will wrap up this month with this video, but there's one more video I have left, and you probably know what it is.